Welcome to livemain.com. This week, the United Nations will release the negotiating text for all nations of the world to negotiate on what happens on climate change action, who bears the cost of it, and where does the technology come from. So today we have Shirish Sinha, the head of climate change and energy of WWF, to talk to us and to shed light on what these critical issues could mean. Hello, Shirish. The first question is, what are the main contentions between the developing and the developed world, and what do you see as the most agreeable outcome at the next meetings?
See, basically there are three commitments that you can say which is needed. One, which is on the levels of ambition on GHG emission reduction targets by the Annex 1 countries. So that's one level of contention differences which exist between two. The second is on financing, which is needed or which needs to be brought in to address the challenges. Financing both within the Annex 1 countries, financing for the non-Annex 1 countries. The third thing is on the technology transfer, and these last two are kind of very much linked to each other. So what is the level of financing? And I think we need, what is the current status is that we do not have commitment from any of the parties on either of these three things, and especially now that we're reaching the phase that as per the existing protocol we require at least 6 months time frame to be proposals to be made available. We need clear proposals on the table, a negotiation text, etc. by June mid, so that is available for parties to discuss. And we're far away from the kind of commitments which the Annex 1 countries are going to put on table.
The government is proposing very ambitious targets for solar energy. What do you think currently are the things that could work for India, and what could be the bottlenecks for India?
Well, the solar targets are very ambitious. I mean, even achieving what they're putting forward for 2020 or up to 2050, they are very, very ambitious targets. On one hand, I think we need that kind of ambition to be there, because I think we have the capacity to deliver on such large solar PV targets or solar production capacity targets in this country. But on the same side, in terms of the implementation, that's going to be huge challenges, because unless you do not back it up with the right form of regulatory mechanisms, it's not going to happen.
The UP is back in power, and so is nuclear energy. How do you see nuclear India as by 2030 or 2050?
Even by 2030 or 2050, any target that we look at, we would probably need all forms of energy sources to meet our growing energy demand. Nuclear would play a role in that. Its share is roughly around 5 to 10% they're talking about. It might just increase.
China and India are asking for 1% of the developed world GDP to finance the mitigation actions or cutting emissions in the developing countries. Where do you see the money coming from? From auction revenue, from the carbon markets, or a tax or public funding?
We're in a meeting about a week back with few of the members of the European Union, and this issue of financing came up. Now, EU in its package has talked about various options to do it, and I think they're pushing a lot of effort on auctioning of as one of the sources for financing. But I think there are differences within the various EU members itself and to the level of ambition of financing that could be made available. I think it's not going to be one single package for source of financing. There are concerns given the economic crisis. A lot of countries are not willing to make the commitment that is needed for the financing. So I think we're looking again as all possible options for financing. There is interesting proposals from the LDCs on levies to be made on bunker fuels, as well as on emissions happening from the aviation sector. I think those are the various mechanisms that is there. We look at probably all sources of multiple sources of financing to do that. No one source is actually going to meet the requirement that we have.
Thank you very much, Shirish, for being with us.